You're right, GangGreen UK. We're back. It's the off season. It's our favourite time of the year. Um, Welcome along, guys. James, Otis, Fraser. How's it all going?
All
Yeah,
good.
good, thanks.
Yep, very good, thank you.
You can cut the excitement. You can cut the excitement. Well, there's a lot being going on, but really, we're not here to talk today about that. What we're going to talk about is 1 year on for Mr. International Fan of the Year, Frazer Campbell. So we've been wanting to do this chat for a while, and just discuss all the things that kind of happened on the build up, why people should enter it. So talk to us about that first week, Fraser. Like, tell us about what happened. Like, how did it all come about? Obviously, your call with Conklin and everything like that.
Yeah, so I think it was just before the Super Bowl last year. I received an email from Ben, that obviously you know, and that works for the Jets in the UK, just asking me if I'd be available to go on a call just to speak to him and the Jets about this International Fan of the Year application process and things like that. Never really thought anything of it at the time. Just says that I was a finalist, and they just like to hear a bit more about my story. Yeah, so it kind of came about for that, and then it was round about the end of February, I think it was. So about well, no, so it wasn't. It was about a week after that. I had the call with them, and then obviously everybody's seen the video. Me and Conklin, it's been shared quite a lot. Um, I was announced as International Fan of the Year. Yeah, so I think it was about 2 weeks after that they announced it to everybody else around about the end of February.
So, what was that like? Like that? Like, did you have any clue? Like from that first call to the second call, or were you
Um,
kind of
no, no, because it was such a big prize, obviously, and things like that. I never thought, that's not something that I'm going to be selected for. So to be honest, no, I didn't really have any inkling. Obviously, you guys remember me on the chat, and I think the day that I was announced, I kind of mentioned that I had a call with the Jets that night, but no, I had no idea, obviously.
Yeah, because that was the same day that I was going, yeah, me too, all
Yeah,
day.
I think that's what threw me off.
Um, so obviously the prize was pretty epic. Um, I know everybody's kind of got questions about what the prize was, how it came about. Um, but before we kind of go into it, Otis, what question of the whole kind of prize and the competition thing have you had, like, kind of that you've heard said the most, or that you wanted to ask the most?
I think the big thing probably for me was how much did you have to sort of organize, and or how much did they sort of just do everything for you? Was it all set up by them? Was it quite, structured by them?
Yeah, so before we got to Detroit, I'd say maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks before, I received an email that had basically the whole plan for the whole trip. So it was everything broken down from from the moment I left my home in Isle of Man to my flight times to what hotels I was staying at, and then when I arrived in Detroit, it had a breakdown of everything that you were scheduled to do each day. So over I think I was there for 5 days, but it was only 4 days worth of things going on from the Jets and the NFL. So every day was broken down, so you kind of had an idea of what you were doing. A lot of it, obviously, though, I had no idea what it was because apart from the draft days itself, the other things during the day before the draft, it was a lot of tours, a lot of backstage things, a lot of interviews, and a lot of things like that. And it's quite hard to actually understand what it was because obviously I've never done it before. So it was all set out ready for us. We had the names of the reps. The reps set up a WhatsApp chat with the UK winners, so it was like a UK winners WhatsApp chat. So we were in the same kind of group as the Germans and anybody else who had won. So it was to be fair to the NFL and the Jets, it was set up very well. So there was never any worries about what am I doing, what's going to be happening. It was just more what does that actually mean.
What about you, James? Did you have any?
Yeah, just kind of wondering what was the main highlight, really. Obviously, I know you did the draft pick, but was there any like other kind of high points in the whole weekend or week, I suppose?
Um, yeah, that's a good question because obviously when you arrive, the first event we had was the meet and greet that night with or the next night after we arrived was with Roger Goodell. So obviously for me, you've seen the photos. Obviously Curtis Martin was there, so getting to meet Curtis Martin, have a chat with him for a little while, it's more civilized. You actually can have conversations with these people you wouldn't on a daily basis be able to. If you bumped into them, it would just maybe a quick hello and a photo, but you're literally sitting there having full blown conversations. So I think because it was so overwhelming, that initial first night was probably up there because it was so full of emotions and it was just so unreal. Obviously, as you go on and on and on, you get to the last night and I'm doing the draft pick. Yes, it was amazing to do the draft pick, but you've kind of settled into that routine. You're in that environment, you're in that world. So the excitement's there, but it's hard to pick a moment that's better than the whole lot from that. I think for me, just overall the best part of it was, getting to meet other Jets fans and other fans from other teams, even so, and like getting to meet the domestic fan of the year and spend time with her and her husband, go out for a few drinks and some meals, and then obviously getting to meet Claudio and Lou and all that again, and Tailgate Joe was there. Then there was other fans there that actually ended up coming to London and bumping into us at our event. So I think getting to meet all these different fans was kind of the highlight overall, to be honest, and getting to share the experiences we're all going through together.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing that they've tried to do, isn't it? They've tried to bring it so it brings the camaraderie that we have in the fan base to all the other fan bases as well.
Yeah,
Um, so obviously you got there, you met Roger the first day.
yeah,
Uh, once the draft started, how was that? Because like there was a shit ton of people there. Like,
yeah,
well, it looked like that on the TV.
yeah. I think there was 275,000 people there the first night, I think, which is absolutely insane. Where
That's like
we
the
were
population of
standing,
the island, isn't it?
it's about 6 times more. um, it was weird because we went in, we had like a red carpet. So we done the walk that the players were doing about an hour after us. So we walked the red carpet and you had like ESPN, Fox, all different channels, taking your photos and it was wild. Like you didn't know where to look or what to do because you just felt like this fan, and you're walking down this red carpet and you're thinking, what do I do? What do I do? I've never been. Do you stop for photos? Do you talk to people? You don't know. And then obviously at the end of the walkway, you see the photos and met Annie Agar, and there was a few other people we'd met at the end there, so it's really good. But when we actually got into the draft itself, and then our circle, it was obviously at the very front of the stage, we could hear everybody behind us, but you couldn't see much apart from the other teams because we were in the second row, I think, where the Jets area was. So you could see the other teams that were behind you, and then you could see some fans, and then you could see the kind of start of the general admission part, but you couldn't see beyond that and how far back it went. We knew how far back it went because we'd obviously walked past there that day and seen the size of it, but you you could just hear the noise. And then obviously it started the show and they had the Lions players come out and the Eminem came out. So it was kind of it was a bit wild. But we actually went up on the stage before they actually started filming as well. For that first draft night, they took all the international fans up of the year up on the stage and they announced us all, and we all stood there, so you could then see how far it went, and it was absolutely insane how many people were there.
Yeah, it's one of them, isn't it? I mean, Eminem would have been a highlight.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just next level. Um, what was it like though? Like getting from the inner circle, like out and moving around, because you could go out into the main draft experience and everything, couldn't you?
Yeah,
Oh,
so it was quite easy, to be fair. To be honest, we didn't do the draft experience until the final day. Um, it was quite the way that Detroit had shut the roads and where our hotel was. It was quite complicated depending on because we had to enter at certain entry points, so it was quite complicated to get to the hotel and to the draft and back because the way the roads were shut, just the way that Detroit was set up for the event. So it was pretty tough. So we stayed away from kind of all the 40-yard dashes and all the events and all the little things that were going on inside. We stayed away from that until like the third day, until it had kind of, I say, died down a little bit, but there was still nearly 200,000 people there. But until it just kind of relaxed, and we were so busy every other day that we couldn't really do it during the day anyway. But yeah, so we didn't really experience that. But for access for us to get in and out of the inner circle was pretty easy, to be fair. For the way it's set up is so structured. Obviously, it's probably the same for every city they go to. It's just different location. So yeah, it was pretty easy, to be honest.
Oh, good. How are we then, James? I know you've got another question.
Yes, I think, what would you say about like Detroit as a city? I know you've been a couple of places in America, but would you kind of recommend it? Was it a good experience?
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely loved it. It's an unbelievable city. Like, I know it gets a lot of bad rep, and even before going, I was a bit concerned. And you were reading reports saying, this city's like this, it's like this, and you need to stay away from here. And I was like, oh, this, I'm not sure about this. And obviously, just growing up, you hear about likes of Detroit, and I was thinking, oh no, I'm not sure about this. But to be honest, it's probably one of the best cities I've ever been to. The city itself was unbelievable. Like, everybody was so friendly. We went out for a night out on the last night after we went to the baseball after the draft, and then went on a night out with the domestic fan of the year and her partner. And every bar we went into, everybody was so friendly. Everybody was chatting. Never seen a sign of any trouble whatsoever anywhere we went. It's such a nice city. It's so clean. They've spent a lot of money. I think that's why the NFL went there now, because they've obviously never been there before, because they've spent so much money doing up the city itself that it's now just become this like this hub, and I'd love to go back. Great city, great pizzas. So yeah, it's a really nice place. Definitely.
So 8 Mile was lying is pretty much what he's saying.
Yeah, if you go to the parks, I suppose, because you can do tours of like 8 Mile and things, but obviously we didn't have time. But I'm guessing the outskirts and other areas there is some, rougher bits as it's called. But in the city itself was brilliant, and everyone's within walking distance. You can walk from Ford Field, to Tiger Stadium, to where the draft event was, all within like 15-20 minutes. And they've got like a tram thing that goes around, and it has like 10 stops, and it stopped right at our hotel down the front, and it takes you right round the whole city, and it's free. You just jump on, drop off. Well, it was free for us. I think you have to pay during the normal kind of season.
Otis, over to you, mate.
One of the things that I think was a bit of a surprise for you when you were over there and in the inner circle was the appearance of Sauce Gardner.
Yeah.
What was that like, and what was the sort of reaction to Sauce turning up?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, I think it was that morning. I'd seen something that he was actually in Detroit. And I remember I was speaking to Tyler Conklin at the time. I was at the draft, and he was telling me, he was saying he was gutted because he was hoping to be there because he's from Michigan. So he was like, I really hope to be there. And he was messaging saying that he wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. And I remember seeing something that Sauce put on, and I says to Tyler, I says, you just drop him a message and see what he's up to. I says, I'd love to be able to meet him. And his reply made it weird. His reply was something along the lines, he probably won't even reply back to me with a giggly face. And I was like, something's a bit suspicious here. And then we were in the inner circle, and we get told, none of yous leave, because there was like 12 of us in there. And we're like, none of yous leave, we've got a surprise. And I never thought anything of it. And these two young kids turned up, and we were chatting to them, and we thought, is this a surprise? It turns out they two kids were Roma Dunsi's little brothers. So we thought, is why are they here, kind of thing. And at the time, obviously the hype with the Jets, he was apparently a target. So I think, no, this is weird. And then next minute, I just turned round, and I think it was Laura kind of nudged me and says, "Look, Fraser." And I turned round, and here he was coming in, and where he came in was quite quick to get from where he came in to us. And as soon as I turned round, and I think I was the first person he seen, he just came straight up to me, and shook my hand, got a photo, signed my thing. That I had a little chat with him. He done try to get him to do a Jets chant and stuff. but he stood there for like 5 minutes or so, just talking to all of us and all of Gotham City and that was there. But he's such a nice guy. You can tell he's quite quiet. He's not, you know. Obviously, Braylon Edwards came down as well after he'd done a draft pick in day two, and he's, giving it all large, giving the big Jets chant, dapping us all up. He's full of life, whereas Sauce was kind of the opposite. He's more chilled, more relaxed, quite quiet, which was, I suppose, a bit surprising. I thought he'd be a bit more, kind of out there, but I think he was such a nice guy. You could see the fans of the other teams were all desperate to try and get into our little area to try and get it, and the security were like keeping them all out. And they're like, nah, he's kind of there just for you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, such a nice guy. As I say, signed my stuff for me, got a photo, had a chat with us. But what was really good about the inner circle is I had the Jets reps there, and because of my award, obviously, they made sure that no matter who come, they were like, right, this is the fan of the year, blah, blah, blah. Can you get a photo with him? Can you sign his flag? Can you do it? So it was so well organised from the Jets that when things like that happened, you weren't getting missed out amongst the kind of the crowd, But yeah, such a nice guy. Not as big as I thought he would be. He's just your typical cornerback, quite skinny and a little bit taller than me. But yeah, it was good fun to see him.
Sweet.
So obviously everybody saw the pick. I mean, nobody saw it on TV because they went to a commercial, which is just your luck. But then obviously I've asked you the question off chat about tell us about going up to make that pick. What happened? Like, what goes on behind the scenes? And you know what I'm talking about.
So it's absolutely insane how the setup is, and we'll get to that in a second. But on the third day, you're not in the inner circle area, but you're not in your team's inner circle. There isn't a team's inner circle on day three. You only have teams day 1 and 2. So the rep and everything's gone for day 3. They're not there. So it's only literally, I don't know who they picked to go in there, but there's other people in there and it's all kind of mixed. So the international fans, because of getting to a draft selection, we were all kind of designated certain areas to sit so that they knew where we were, instead of having to come to where your team inner circle would be, which wasn't there day 3. So funnily enough, we were in the Eagles section, which Laura obviously liked. But so it was a long day, 100%. I was nervous as anything. I was sitting there. Jets kept trading their picks away, and honestly, you have no idea how like I'm not the kind of person that gets nervous or worried, or I'm not confident of anything. I'm quite a confident person who doesn't really have that kind of. I'm fine with pressure. It doesn't really get to me. I just do it, and that's kind of it. But that day, I don't think I've ever sweated so much in my life. It felt like it was a cold day. I felt like I was on a beach wearing about 20 layers in the hottest day of the year. It was absolutely mental. But when it finally come to my pick, so they come get you, take you backstage. So then you go in a waiting room, and in the waiting room it's got the broadcast. I can't remember what station it was, but it's broadcasting the draft in that room, and it's got like loads of food and drinks and stuff that you can help yourself to. So I'd suspect that's the same waiting room that that the players are getting put in. When the ex-players, when they do the announcements in day 2 or whatever, it's the same room. So when I was in there, I knew Jets were like pick 173, and this was like you get took up roughly 10 minutes before your pick. So I was up there, and then next minute it came across saying Jets were on the clock. I was like, oh, because I hadn't done any of the process, so I knew if Jets had traded that pick that I was due to pick, then I was thinking, oh my god, I'm going to have to go back down again and sit and sweat even more. But luckily they hadn't traded the pick, and so the announcement came through. They selected Jordan Travis, and then they come and get me and says, right, they've still got this pick. So they took me into this other room. So they explained the process. So the process is I go into the room, I wait, and there's like a screen in the room, and there's a couple of people that sit there and they monitor it, and it has like the last 15 picks or so, and then it has the next 15 picks, but they're all blank. So as soon as the team has phoned up, which we actually got a tour of the day before. There's another area just to the side of the draft stage, and this is where like 12 people sit and they take the phone calls from the teams for the pick and all that. And that's wild how that happens. But anyway, they send this pick onto the system, and this is where it comes on the screen. So you're just waiting and waiting and waiting on the name popping up on the screen. So the name pops up on the screen, and they say to you, have a look, see if you can pronounce the name. Luckily for me, it was a name I could pronounce quite easily, so I was happy straight away. Didn't really know much about the player at the time. So once the name comes up on the screen, there's another, like an NFL worker. She's sitting there. She sees the name, and then they print the cards. So the cards are there, so they put it in like a printer, and the cards come out, and then they write the names on, and then they give you the card. They ask you to just kind of say the name out so that they know that you can say it correctly. But what they do is they break it down on the card so that if it's a complicated name, you can say it, in a way that it's weird the way it's broken down. I never get to see that obviously because mine was an easy name, and then it's just a case of waiting. You're just waiting. They'll talk to you. They'll talk to you in a way that's try to kind of get the pressure off you. How you feeling? How's your time been? Stop you thinking about what's going on. And then as soon as it's time, it's like a countdown. It's like like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then they open the curtain and then you go out. And then as you're going out, you hear your name being announced on the stage and everything. You come out. And to be honest, for me, I remember just looking up, seeing how many people there was, and everything went blank. Like I cannot remember walking from the curtain to the podium. As soon as I seen how many people it was, I remember getting to the podium. I had rehearsed all sorts of things to say for the draft pick itself, and that all went out the window. As soon as I got to the stage, everything was just off a whim. Like it was just everything that I had rehearsed out the window. It was just I went out there, and then obviously you've seen the videos of what I'd done and what I said and things. But yeah, everyone was blank. I can't even remember looking at the cards when I was doing the pick. So I think I just must have remembered it in my head and said the name, the pick number, the school it was from without even looking at the card. It looks like I'm looking at the card, but there's nothing on the card. There's like I can't see anything. But yeah, it was absolutely insane to be honest. It's an experience that not many people get.
It was a good performance anyway. You did Jets chant as well. Yeah.
Well, you had to get the Jets chant in. I wasn't worried about anything else as long as I got the Jets chant in. But I thought, you know what, I'll give a big up to Detroit at the start to get them on my side. And when you're there, I don't know if it's as clear in the video, but when I, thanked, I gave a shout out to Detroit, and then congratulated the rest of the international fans who had won the awards. You could hear the cheering and everything. It was clear as day for me. You could hear the cheering and all the shouting, which was good, and it kind of put you at ease. But then as soon as I done the Jets chant, all I heard was boos, and it was like, oh my god! It's like you imagine when you watch it in telly and they're just booing, like it's wild. But what an experience!
Safe, man. I was wondering, 'cause obviously, like Gotham City crew were there, and I think Frank was there. How do they decide who kind of gets in that inner circle, or is it ticketed, that kind of thing?
I'm not actually sure. I know, obviously, I'd have got it because of my award. I think the domestic fan, she would have got it for her award. But with Gotham City and Tailgate Joe, I'm not sure in this selection process and how they get it. I mean, they'll know more about that. I didn't really want to ask them, because
Yeah.
that's their kind of their story or their reasoning for why they were picked. But the first night there was, us and Lou and Claudio, and then the domestic fan. The 6 of us were there both nights, whereas the first night and the second night, the other 5 people or 6 people who were there were different. As I say, well, Tailgate Joe, sorry, he was there both nights as well, but the other 5 people or 6 people weren't there both nights. So I don't know how they do it. To be honest, no idea.
Exactly.
You mentioned before the phone-in system and that it was wild how they do the phone-in system. Yeah. How does it work?
So the day before, or was it the day after? The day after the first night, I think it was. So I think on the second draft day, during the day, one of our trips was like a tour of all the certain backstage and headquarters. So we went to the headquarters where they explained how the picks come in, how they deal with it, and it's basically just a room, and there's like, I don't know, there's 12 or 14 of them sitting there, and each one of them have got a job. And then there's the final person who calls the pick in to obviously down to the draft, and then that's where they put it all on the system. So you've got all the other people, they have all connected to all the teams. So they're all like hooked up with the people phoning in for the teams to make the pick. So they explained how the trades work. So what happens is one person's on the phone with one team, one person's on the phone with another team, and one team will say what they are sending this team for said pick, and then the other team will say the same. Now, if they don't match up, they tell them it's wrong and they put the phones down, and the clock keeps continuing, obviously. So then they have to try and figure it out. They explained the process of what happens, if a team doesn't make the pick, and they explained the last time that happened. So once they phone the people and the trade's been made, they then pass the information to someone else who checks it all to make sure that's okay. Because if it's next year's picks, they need to know that that team's got that pick next year, and then it goes back to this one person again. Then they call it in. So it's absolute wild. So it's an intense job. The way that we're speaking to us about it and how it works, like it's probably the most pressure anybody's got in draft night in itself. But the setup was mad, and their room that they have is like off to the side of the stage, and it was quite high up, so they could literally see the draft stage, the inner circle, and then the whole lot of the general admission. So it'd be a good job to have that, but it was pretty impressive setup. To be honest, I forgot half the stuff they said because I was trying to look at the screens and see what was on the screens to see if I could see any like information. But yeah, it was a good setup.
So obviously this year's is closed, but what would you say to the people who entered, who are currently waiting? I think we've got about a month really before before anybody finds out. What would you say to them? And for people who are thinking about entering next year?
For the people that are thinking about entering, firstly, I say 100% do it. This is not something that you can ever buy. You're never gonna experience this unless you win this. The inner circle itself and getting to make a draft pick is team selected only. You can't go out there and buy a ticket, no matter how much money you've got, to enter that inner circle and go up on the stage and make a draft pick. I spoke to people have been to the Super Bowl, and they were literally like, I want to do the draft instead of the Super Bowl because of the experience that it provides. So I'd say to them, definitely enter. And personally, don't care what people think, because I know what it's like when I got selected. There's a lot of negativity out there. There's a lot of positivity. Don't care what people think. First and foremost, they're all going to forget about it in a few years. You're going to have this experience for the rest of your life. So 100% for the people who want to enter, do it, because you'll never, ever experience anything like it. As an NFL and just a general football fan, it is probably. I've never done the Super Bowl, but to me, I don't think the Super Bowl, unless my team was in it, would match this. To be honest, with everything that you get from it. To the people that have entered, I don't know what I'd say, because it's just keep your fingers crossed, and just if you get that call or however they announce it, just enjoy the moment, take it for what it's worth, and just enjoy it. That's all you can do.
Awesome. Well, that's us on about time for tonight. We will be back. We'll be doing a few videos. We're not going to be doing anything too crazy, but we'll be chatting about the goings on, like when something happens and we actually hire somebody instead of interviews. But we'll catch you on the page. We've got some exciting stuff coming. Cheers for coming along, Otis, James, and Fraser.
No worries.
No problem.
And we'll see you all soon.